The wind did not sing that night. It howled like a beast with its throat torn open. It clawed at the shutters of my cabin, rattled the rafters Henry had set with his own hands, and forced snow through every crack until the very walls moaned. With the strain, sat by the fire, shawl drawn tight across my shoulders, staring into the flames as if they might swallow me whole. The storm was cruel, yes, but storms were familiar. It was the silence inside me that I feared most. Silence left behind when my boy Samuel burned with fever and died in my arms. Silence left when Henry never returned from a raid, cut down like so many men trying to defend cattle that weren't worth the blood spilled. Silence that pressed on me each day like a shroud, telling me I should have joined them in the earth. I had survived 3 winters alone, not by choice, but because stubbornness was the one thing I had left. Pine Hollow. Whispered about me the odd widow, too proud to remarry, too cold to move back east. They didn't know the truth. I stayed because I didn't know how to leave. That night I had just thrown my last thick log on the fire when it came, the pounding. Faint at first, then harder, 3 deliberate thuds against the door. My blood iced over, as no honest man would. Be out in weather like this. I seized Henry's rifle from above the hearth, the weight of it steady and familiar in my hands. "Who's there?" I called, my voice cracking sharp through the gale. For a long moment, nothing. Then, through the roar of the storm, came a broken plea. "Help, please." I lifted the wooden slot and peered into the night.
Oh.
Snow slashed sideways, the world white and blind. But there, slumped against the doorframe, was a man, mid-30s maybe, though the storm had carved years into his face. Dark hair matted with ice, lips blue, one gloved hand pressed against his shoulder, where blood seeped dark into the snow. He swayed, then dropped to his knees. I should have barred the door, should have let the storm take him. A woman alone doesn't gamble with strangers. But something stronger than reason took me. I yanked the bar free. The door blew wide, nearly ripping from its hinges, snow blasting inside. Quickly I shouted, "Oh!" He staggered forward, boots dragging, and collapsed onto my floor. I wrestled the door shut against the beast wind and dropped the bar back in place. My breath came ragged. The man lay sprawled by the hearth, shaking violently, blood soaking through his torn coat. "Don't move," I snapped, rifle aimed. His head lolled toward me. Eyes storm gray, oddly clear. Name's Elias Turner. Burke gang jumped me. Took the money. Left me for dead. His voice was low, each word torn from his lungs. "You don't need the rifle. I couldn't harm you if I tried. I should have kept it trained, but my heart betrayed me." Lowering the barrel, I knelt. His wound bled hot and steady. I fetched whiskey and cloth. "This'll hurt," I said. "Can't hurt worse." He didn't cry out when the liquor hit raw. Flesh just hissed through clenched teeth. My hands moved with practiced steadiness, the same hands that had once nursed Henry's cuts, Samuel's fevers. How many times had I fought death and lost? Not tonight. Not if I could help it. When I tied the bandage firm, he gave a faint nod. "You've got a steady hand." I stood quick, busying with broth on the stove. I did not want his gratitude. I did not want the strange heat in my chest when his eyes lingered on me. I told myself it was just the storm, the cabin. It's the nearness of another living soul after years alone. But I was wrong. The storm pinned us inside for 3 days. It's 3 long days in which silence was broken by his low voice, his rough laughter, his stories of drifting across the frontier after the war, farmer's son from Missouri, youngest of 3, who never found a place to call home. I told him pieces of myself I hadn't spoken aloud in years. About Samuel, gone too soon. About Henry, steady and strong until bullets tore him down. I spoke with the flat calm of someone who had told the story too many times to bleed anymore. At the way Elias listened without pity, without judgment made me feel exposed. By the second day he was helping where he could. Splitting kindling with one good arm, fixing a chair leg that had been loose for years, feeding wood to the fire without being asked. Once I stumbled reaching for a pot and he caught my arm. Just a heartbeat of contact, but it rattled me so. Badly I snatched away. His eyes flickered with the same confusion I felt. That night while I sewed by the fire and he whittled at a scrap of wood, a sound cut through the storm hooves. I froze, needles slipping from my hand. Elias's head snapped up, eyes narrowing. They followed. Before I could ask, the crack of a pistol split the night, which splintered near the shutter. I grabbed Henry's rifle from the wall, heart pounding. Elias staggered to his feet, face pale but voice steady. "Burke's men, they won't leave loose ends." Another shot shattered glass, snow swirling in. I shoved Elias back toward the hearth. "Stay down." My hands shook as I braced the rifle on the windowsill. Shadows moved out in the storm dark, shapes against the white fury. One fired again, bullet thudding into the logs. I squeezed the trigger. The recoil slammed my shoulder, the flash lighting the storm for a heartbeat. A figure cried out, collapsing into the snow. "Good shot," Elias rasped. I didn't answer. There was no time. 2 more shadows circled. One crept close to the door. I swung the rifle, fired against splinters, exploded from the porch rail, the man ducking back. Elias pulled his revolver with his good hand, aimed through the broken shutter, and fired. Another outlaw fell, vanishing into the white. The storm swallowed the rest. Silence pressed heavy, broken only by the wind and my ragged breath. My hands trembled so hard, I almost dropped the rifle. "They'll be back," Elias said grimly. "Burke doesn't forgive." I turned, meeting his eyes across the firelight. My heart still raced, but beneath the fear was something fiercer. I had defended my home, defended him. For the first time in years, I felt not just hollow survival, but fire. By dawn the storm eased. The outlaws had vanished into the drift, leaving only blood-dark patches in the snow. Elias insisted he'd ride out once the trail cleared, not wanting to bring more danger to my door. I said nothing, just pressed a bowl of broth into his hands. But when he left, days later, the cabin felt emptier than before. His shadow gone from the chair, his voice gone from the fire. On the mantel, beside Henry's Bible, lay the carving he'd left behind, a wolf, its head raised, fierce and untamed. I touched it often. Tracing the grooves with my thumb, I told myself it meant nothing. But each night, when the wind howled, I found myself whispering the truth to the silence. The storm has changed me. When the storm cleared and Elias Turner rode out of my life, I told myself I was relieved. A woman alone couldn't afford the scandal of harboring a strange man, let alone one carrying the Burke gang's bullets in his flesh. The world of Pine. Hollow had eyes sharper than hawks and tongues quicker than pistols. Better he was gone. That's what I told myself. Met nights stretched long after, the silence heavier than it had ever been before. The chair where he'd sat by the fire seemed to lean emptier than the others. The broken shutter we'd defended together gaped like a scar on my wall. And on the mantel that wolf carving stood defiant, its wooden snarl daring me to admit what I felt. I tried to busy myself. Chopped wood, fed chickens, rode into Pine Hollow. For flour and lamp oil. But everywhere I went, I felt the whispers circling me like wolves in the dark. She weren't alone in that storm. "Did you hear gunfire that night?" "Burke's men showed up dead in the snow. Don't think a widow took them down by herself." Their words gnawed at me, sharp as knives. At Morrison's store, Mrs. Morrison served me with a smile too tight, her voice honeyed and cold. "I do hope the winter wasn't too hard on you, Mrs. Bennett. Must be difficult being all alone." I met her gaze. "I've managed." Her hand stilled on the counter. "Some say you had help." It rushed into my face, but I kept my voice. "Steady." "A man came to my door bleeding out. I gave him mercy. If that offends folks, perhaps it's their hearts that need mending, not mine." The hush that followed was louder than any gunshot. When I left the store, the weight of eyes burned between my shoulder blades. Pine Hollow had always pitied me. Now it judged me. And though I told myself I didn't care, shame bit deep. That night, alone by the fire, I sat with the wolf carving in my palm. Its wooden ridges dug into my skin, as though trying to remind me of something I wanted to forget that for the first time in years. I had felt alive. I remembered his voice in the storm. "They'll be back. Burke doesn't forgive." Each creak of the timbers sounded like danger's footfall. Kept the rifle by the door, slept little, and dreamed less. Weeks passed before the letter came. It was Mrs. O'Leary's boy who brought it, riding his pony up to my porch with a grin. "Mail for you, Mrs. Bennett." I almost laughed. Who would write to me? No one had for years. The envelope was rough, the handwriting uneven. My breath caught at the name, Elias Turner. I sat at the table, fingers trembling, and unfolded the page. He wrote plain, without flourishes. He'd found work breaking horses at Fort Redstone. Said they were looking for a teacher for the children there. Thought maybe I could fill that place. He wasn't asking anything, only offering a chance. But between the lines, I heard his voice again, grateful, steady, hoping. I read it 3 times, my pulse hammering louder with each. Then I pressed the paper flat on the table and stared at it until the lamplight blurred. Mercy had brought him to my door. It could mercy my own toward myself, take me away from this hollow life. Pine Hollow made the decision harder. One afternoon, Margaret Doyle Sturdy, sharp-eyed Margaret, who ran the boarding house, came to my door with bread. She had been widowed near as long as me and carried the kind of blunt honesty only loneliness can carve. "They're talking, Clara," she said, setting the bread down with a thump. "Some call you reckless, some call you worse." I bristled. "I've done nothing shameful. Doesn't matter what you've done. It matters what they believe. And you know what I think?" She leaned close, her eyes fierce. "That storm woke something in you? I see it in your face. Been half dead for years and now you look like you're breathing again. Don't waste that." Her words burrowed deep, unsettling the walls I'd built around my grief. After she left, I sat long into the night, staring at the wolf. The letter opened beside it. "Surviving isn't living." I could almost hear Elias saying it again that spring. I made my choice. I sold the homestead to Samuel Watson's nephew, who had long-eyed my land for his cattle, packed only what mattered: Henry's Bible, Samuel's doll, my grandmother's china, and the wolf. When I rode out wagon rattling, I looked back only once at the hill where Henry and Samuel rested. The wind whispered over their crosses, but for the first time it didn't call me to lie down beside them. Fort Redstone was a different world, bustling, noisy, alive with soldiers drilling, wagons clattering, children darting underfoot. After years of silence, the chaos was dizzying, but the laughter of children pierced me deepest. Pulling a forgotten ache wide open, Mrs. O'Leary, a broad Irish woman with a kind heart, gave me a room at her boarding house. She asked no questions, and I gave no answers. That suited me fine. Within a week, I stood in front of a schoolhouse full of eager faces. My voice trembled at first, chalk shaking in my hand, but soon I found my rhythm. The children's eyes shone bright, and I felt Samuel's memory not as a knife, but as a quiet hand, guiding me. For the first time in years, I felt useful again, and then Elias walked into the yard. He looked stronger now, sun-browned, shoulders broad beneath a work shirt. His storm-gray eyes caught mine across the laughter of children. For a moment, the world stilled. "Mrs. Bennett," he said with a tilt of his hat. "Mr. Turner." My voice was even, though my heart thundered. We said no more, but something passed between us, as sharp and sure as lightning across the plains. But peace in thee, West never holds. The Burt gang's shadow lingered. One afternoon, riding with a trader's family, I found myself caught in an ambush. Gunfire erupted, outlaws swooping from the ridges. Stagecoach jolted, children screaming. I clutched a boy tight, praying, as bullets splintered wood. Then Elias was there, charging down from the ridge, revolver blazing, horse rearing through the smoke. The fight was fierce, dust and fire choking the air, until 3 outlaws lay dead and the rest scattered. That night, wept not from fear alone, but from the knowledge that Elias had chosen my life above his own, and I could no longer deny the truth rising in me. I wanted him near, no matter the whispers. Danger struck again in fire. The stables went up in flames one night, roaring into the sky. Horses screamed, sparks raining down. Without thought, I grabbed Bucket's skirt singed as I ran into the blaze. Elias was there, cutting ropes, dragging horses free. Together, we fought the inferno, coughing, hands blistered, lungs seared with smoke. When it was over, ash coating us both, he caught my wrist. "You don't belong in flames, Clara, and you do?" I shot back, my voice breaking. His eyes softened. "It means pulling you through." "Yes." The fire inside me burned hotter than the one we'd just fought. But the Burke gang's cruelty reached further still. They took me. I had stayed late at the schoolhouse, fixing papers by lamplight when shadows filled the doorway. Rough hands seized me, cloth smothering my mouth. Darkness swallowed me. I woke bound to a chair in a shack, lantern light flickering. Burke's lieutenant crouched before me, his grin a knife. "Turner's been a thorn too long. Let's see what he'll trade for you." Fear knifed through me, but fury steadied my voice. "You'll get nothing but my curse," he laughed, but unease flickered in his eyes. "Outlaws don't know what to do with women who don't cower." At dawn, gunfire split the shack. Windows shattered, men cursed. Elias stormed in, revolver smoking, cutting my bonds with trembling hands. His face was pale with fear. "Clara, did they?" "I'm whole," I gasped, and for the first time in years, I threw myself against another human being, clinging as if he were the only solid ground left. The reckoning came soon after. Burke himself rode on Redstone, near a dozen men at his back. The fort erupted in chaos. Soldiers scrambling, townsfolk diving for cover. I braced Henry's old rifle on the schoolhouse sill. Children huddled at my feet. Bullets shattered glass. Dust choked the air. Outside, Elias fought like a storm, dueling through smoke and dust. I fired until my shoulder bruised, one outlaw falling, another reeling. Fear and fury mingled until I felt almost alive with it. By sunset, it was done. Burke's men broken, their leader chained. Redstone still stood. And I, Clara Bennett, was no longer just a widow. I was a fighter. In the quiet after, Elias sat bruised by the fire. I bound his arm with shaking hands. Caught my wrist, his eyes burning with truth. "I've been lost for 15 years. You're the first home I've known." Tears spilled hot down my cheeks. For years I had thought my heart buried with Henry and Samuel. Now, against all odds, it beat again. That spring, Elias asked, "No grand thing, only this. Walk beside me." Rode once more to the graves, laid flowers, whispered my goodbye. "I'll carry you always. I won't bury myself with you anymore." At our wedding in the small frontier church, I wore Henry's watch tucked close, honoring the past as I stepped into the future. Children tossed wildflowers. Townsfolk smiled. The sky stretched wide above Elias. Slipped the carved wolf into my palm as we spoke our vows. Token of survival, of fierceness, of life beyond the storm. And as his hand closed over mine, I knew I was no longer surviving. I was living.